while I'm reminded of my role as a mother 24/7 with my baby girl over there, it's moments like this that remind me that I'm a scuba diver and an underwater photographer, and that I actually have an identity outside of being a mother. So a little bit about myself. My mother is Taiwanese and my father is half French and half Dutch. And I was very lucky that at the age of 7, we moved to the Philippines, and I could start to discover a passion for diving. So today, I'm going to talk to you about my journey through scuba diving, painting, and underwater photography. What they mean in my life and how they are intertwined in what I do. So they had a bit of a mix-up. Although my presentation isn't about dream job photographer, although it is a dream job, today I'm going to talk to you about how I went from acrylic to diveaholic. So I got my first taste of scuba diving when I was 8 years old. My father over there, he was a passionate diver and he still is a passionate diver. And when I was about 8 years old, every weekend we would take road trips to Malboa. And he got me the smallest PCD you could find, which is a very hard task. And at the age of 8, I started diving in 2 meters of water. So I know I've been invited here as a speaker, but I have to tell you one thing. Speaking is not one of my strengths. In fact, the reason why I started painting was so that I could avoid talking in the first place. So, even my mother told me that when I was small, I started speaking very late, and it got her very worried. But later on, she wasn't worried anymore because there was research saying that bilingual children start speaking later. So, don't worry, I'm very normal. So, okay, so this is me as a child. My daughter is about this age now. So let's fast forward a few years. So the transition from awkward child to awkward teenager began for me. And as you know, teenage years are the years of confusion and fear. It's a period where so many hormonal changes happen, and a lot of physical changes in such a short period of time. It is also the time where one's vulnerability to mental illness begins. So, going by that, I guess you could already understand or guess that my teenage years weren't very easy for me. And so I didn't take it well at all, and I struggled in silence until I found that I could express myself through art. And art was the voice that I needed. Art was my outlet, a means of self-expression, of putting things out there, digesting my personal experiences and breaking it up into manageable chunks. What I was drawing was my inner world of fear and of pain. And although you see monsters, in reality they were self-portraits. So today, my internal struggles, let's say, have lost its flame, and I have redirected my focus and attention from the inner world to the outer world, as you can see in this image. Today, I am more concerned with the external world because I can see that it is struggling. It is currently experiencing what I was experiencing as an adolescent. It is in a full-blown crisis. And I see that it is in a state of confusion, of fear, of stress. And today I am convinced that their story needs to be heard. And to be heard, they need a voice. And I want to be that voice. I want to document the beauty that could be lost, and I want to inspire change. So this is a side note. When I used to be painting a lot, and whenever I would see photographers, I would think, they're not real artists. It's so easy to click a shutter but it's so difficult to paint and repaint a canvas. It takes so much time. But now, I understand how wrong I was. Photography is really an art, and it takes as much patience as painting. So, as I have said, I have recently become a mother, and I don't know if it is the hormones or what, but my drive to protect is very strong. And I want to protect everything that is defenseless. And I can tell you one thing, the ocean, against us humans and our impacts, the ocean is really defenseless right now. Today, I am an underwater photographer because I'm in awe of the beauty of nature. I want to give the ocean and its inhabitants a voice. Art used to be a form of self-expression for me, but today, in underwater photography, self-expression is secondary. The primary purpose of my photography is to lend a voice to these creatures that have no voice. I take photos of marine life, mostly of tiny fish. This guy right here is the size of my pinky finger. So I take photos of these small fish because they are so easily overlooked. Everybody loves sharks. Everybody loves mantas. Everybody loves turtles. But what about these small creatures out there? They are also struggling with the changes in the environment, and they're also desperate to be heard. So while nature is able to adapt to the presence of humans and our lifestyle, unfortunately it is unable to keep up with the magnitude and the speed of our impact. Today, I am an underwater photographer because I want to capture all the beauty that I see. And Alan Lowe before me, he was talking about his beautiful work with snooting. I love snooting as well. In fact, many of my images are created with a snoot, like this one. And I love the black background that the snoot can give. So for those who are not familiar, a snoot is a technology that you put on top of your strobe, and it narrows the beam of light. So it just isolates your critter, and it keeps everything nice and black. So the contrast a snoot can give is beautiful. But in many of my photographs, I also want to highlight the habitat of the individual, of the critter. So like in this image, I used a snoot, but I really wanted to highlight the environment it is in, the habitat. And this is because we are slowly forcing so many critters out of their habitat. Because of us, the ocean that these critters call home is changing. The ocean is changing in temperature. We see sea levels rising. We see shifts in salinity and oxygen levels. And ultimately, this impacts the marine life and the organisms that live in the sea. We are also changing many of the organisms' natural habitat. We are forcing them out of where they usually live. So this is a golden goby right here. And every time I've seen a golden goby, it's in glass bottles. And even if you look at the literature, in the habitat section of the marine ID books, you will find that golden gobies live in glass bottles. But it leaves me thinking, where do they live if not in the glass bottles? So in this example, human waste has found a place in the ocean. And these guys have adapted to our impacts and made this glass bottle a home. But unfortunately, not all human waste and rubbish is welcomed by the sea. Most of it, in fact, is so hazardous to the sea. So like the plastic that ends up in the ocean, turtles are ingesting it, they're starving because it's taking place in their stomach and they cannot absorb nutrients anymore. So we see turtles dying, we see so many marine life starving and getting strangled and tangled, and ultimately the waste that we leave in the ocean has a negative impact. So maybe I can give back to the ocean what it gives to me. I find that today a lot of my artworks are inspired by my experiences underwater. I also find that the way I capture the underwater world is swayed by how I paint. So I remember this was about 5 years, maybe 4 years back, when I just had my hands on an underwater camera. And I took this picture of a frogfish. It was the first frogfish I ever captured. I was so excited about it. And I took it home to my husband, and he looked at it and he asked me, why did you cut half of the body out? Why did you just take a picture of the frogfish face? Where's the body? And I thought, I don't know, I just like the way it looks. I just like to compose my image this way. And I don't really have an answer, but it's just how I like it. And today, actually, when I look back at my paintings, I realize that when I paint, I almost never paint the entire animal. This is an exception over here. I painted it in two, and this is one of the only artworks I have that is an entire fish. The other paintings that I have, most of it, it's never an entire fish. And in my underwater photography, I realized that I take photos the way I paint. So, in underwater photography, I see the subject, I see the critter as the performer. But as an underwater photographer, I can choose. I can choose which moment in this critter's life I want to immortalize. In this sense, I can choose the mood and the essence I want the subject to carry in an image. So photography is essentially a medium to capture reality, but that doesn't mean that there's no scope for creativity. In fact, there is so much scope for creativity in underwater photography, just like in photography. You can choose every decision you make as a photographer, from the composition, the angle, the background, the post-processing. Every decision you make is a creative process. As an underwater photographer, I can also choose another thing. I can choose how I interact and respect the animal. In photography, whether land or underwater, the interaction between the photographer and the critter and the animal is paramount. One good example is a wedding photographer. For a wedding photographer to be a good photographer, he or she needs to make the couple feel comfortable. If she or he doesn't make the couple feel comfortable, there's no way that they can capture beautiful natural images. So in underwater photography, it's the same. To be a good underwater photographer, and this will surely reflect in your art, you need to make the critter feel so comfortable that it starts to ignore you. Or better, it starts to approach you. So before I started photography, it probably helps that my father and my husband are also into tech diving. But when I started photography, I was also doing my dive master course, and I became completely obsessed with getting the right buoyancy, perfecting my trim, trying to fin backwards, turn around. And actually, I think having good diving skills is so important to getting good pictures, because this way you can minimize your disturbance to marine life. So the underwater world is my greatest inspiration. Sorry, Henry. The colors of the ocean, the fish, the cephalopods, the crustaceans, anything, you name it, they are my biggest inspiration. And shooting macro, I opened my eyes to an incredibly diverse color palette. And I am just heartbroken that this world that I see and love can soon disappear if we don't do something about the way we are currently acting. Through both my art and underwater photography, I want to capture the diversity and the beauty of the ocean. I want to capture their emotion, and I want to share them to the world. Hopefully, by showing people my images, I can convince them that there is still so much worth fighting for. Art is really my passion, but diving allows me that connection to nature. But in the end, it's conservation and protection that is my purpose. So I just want to share one quote it's not fully shown here, but we're all talking about conservation these days. And conservation sounds like such a big and heavy word, but conservation can just mean, conservation can be as small as just you doing your part. We all just need to do our part. Now, I want to spend a few moments talking about what's on the horizon for me and my family. So my husband right here, unfortunately, I think he went for a walk because my daughter is not very happy. So he couldn't listen to my talk. But my husband is my partner in crime, in photography. And we shoot together as a couple. He's also a very good underwater photographer. So at the moment, we are writing a book about diving in the Philippines. So we're traveling extensively for that as a family, which is not always easy. So we take turns diving, and we take turns riding, and we take turns babysitting. But we're writing this book about diving in the Cebu province of the Philippines, and this is where we live. It will be out next year sometime. But also, whilst we're traveling for the book, I'm hoping that I'll be able to do some black water diving. This is one of the new cool things in the diving world for underwater photographers as well. I think in black water diving, I have found a kind of a true calling. I'm very inspired by this kind of diving because I find that all this zooplankton, all the organisms I see in black water diving, they actually resemble my products of imagination. The fish that I draw, somehow they look like deep sea creatures. And when I look at this larval scorpion fish right here, like all the fins that I draw is so similar. So when I dip my face into this world of black water and see these creatures, I feel like I'm stepping into the world of my imagination. So it's a really exciting feeling for me. And actually, I am not a big fan of diving at night, but because of what I can see, I love it. I love diving at night and witnessing this huge migration of zooplankton. It's really beautiful. If any of you have the opportunity to try, do try. And I think as an underwater photographer, it's even better because with the eyes, sometimes you don't get to see all the intricate details of these small organisms. But when you capture it, you get all the colors and you get all the details, and it's beautiful. And all these things are tiny. They're only like less than a centimeter long. So also as part of the ADEX Book Festival, we've launched this new book, and I was very lucky with my husband to be part of this book. We contributed some images of black water diving, so if you get a chance, please have a look. And because I have some time, I will talk a little bit more about me. So Henley and I, a lot of people are interested. They ask us, what is it like to be a scuba couple? And it's funny. This is my dad. So he is my first dive buddy ever, and now he's been promoted to babysitter. But he comes with us on trips, and he's also started photography. Actually, he's actually not photography, but he started taking videos. And so we do a lot of dive trips together. This is my husband, and it's really the crowd that you meet as an underwater photographer that is beautiful. You meet so many people that love the same things as you, and we inspire each other and we help each other. And actually, Henley and I share our passion in underwater photography. And I think underwater photography is such a beautiful passion to have as a couple to share, because it's not competitive. And also, we spend so much time talking about images, criticizing them, praising them, imagining them. And we also act as each other's sounding boards on land. And we help each other achieve great images. And I think because we have to communicate so much underwater, we've become so good at communicating on land. So in the couple, it was Henley that started underwater photography. And I remember I would just spot things for him to find. And then I got so tired of waiting for him for half an hour with a goby that I decided that no, I also have to pick up a camera myself. So I inherited his first camera, and from then on I've been shooting. So I have this is one thing I want to finish with, and it's something I like to say a lot, and it's we photograph what we are afraid to lose. And I see that I cannot stop taking pictures of my daughter because I see her changing so fast. And we take photos because we want to cling to those moments and we are afraid to lose those moments. So it's the same for me with underwater photography. I photograph what I love because I am so scared to lose them. And just to finish off, if there's any one of you in the audience that are aspiring underwater photographers, underwater photography is known to be a very equipment-oriented sport or endeavor. But don't become so obsessed with having the latest equipment and having the latest gear. Challenge yourself to use what you already have and to make unique images. So for me, I am not at all obsessed with techniques, and I'm not at all obsessed with gear. I just create, and I think that's a very good frame of mind to have. Use what you already have to create great images. Don't chase the newest technology thinking that it will suddenly transform your images, because you have the power. You can create, and don't let equipment drive you. You drive your creation. So also another big thing is when you find a subject, what I like to do is I pretend that I am the first ever human being to see the subject. So I will come to a fish, especially like blennies. I will just spend a minute staring at it because I feel like it's the first time I've ever seen it, and I pretend that I'm the first human being to ever see it. And that inspires me so much. I feel having the time to just appreciate it before you shoot will give you a better idea of how you want to shoot it as well and what emotion you want to bring out in your image. So these are just some of the tips that I want to leave you with. Of course, if you have any questions, you can ask me now, but you can also, if you don't want to speak up, you can just talk to me after the presentation. So thank you all for coming to listen to me. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jade Hoksbergen, for the beautiful photos and the inspiring speech. Thank you.